Good evening, I'm Melissa Ridgen. We begin tonight with anti-pipeline advocates from multiple nations in BC are calling on the Canadian government to stop the Trans Mountain and Coastal GasLink pipelines. They say a new letter from the United Nations confirms their rights are being violated. Lee Wilson has that story.
Indigenous rights experts, anti-pipeline advocates from the Wet'suwet'en, Secwepemc, and Tsleil-Waututh nations held a press conference calling for the stop to two pipelines. They say a recent letter from the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, or CERD, confirms the Trans Mountain and Coastal GasLink pipelines are in violation of international laws by not obtaining proper consent. The CERD letter also calls for negotiation between parties and an investigation of the RCMP actions against protesters. Slato, Molly Wickham, spokesperson of the Gidimt'en Access Point, says the construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline and RCMP arrests in the Wet'suwet'en territory are a violation of their rights.
When I read the third letter from CERD, I felt overwhelmed by the recognition that our experiences are a violation of international human rights and Indigenous rights. The construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline project and the RCMP's treatment of me and other land offenders is a violation of our humanity as Indigenous people.
The Coastal GasLink pipeline has been a controversial project in northern BC. According to the pipeline builder, CGL, the 670-kilometer natural gas pipeline has consent from the 20 First Nation band councils along the route. But Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs have remained opposed to it running through their territory. This conflict has led to RCMP raids and arrests for 3 consecutive years. In Secwepemc territory, House Mmiwg, spokesperson from the Tiny House Warriors, opposes the Trans Mountain pipeline. She says they expressed their concerns in Canada, but now they're voicing them internationally.
To express the human rights violations that are happening in Canada. And these other international institutions are recognizing that human rights are being violated here in Canada, and insurance companies are starting to walk away from this project, financiers, etc.
The Tiny House Warriors built tiny homes along the Trans Mountain pipeline route. In 2018, the Canadian government purchased the pipeline from Kinder Morgan after they wanted out of the project due to environmental opposition. According to the Trans Mountain Pipeline Corporation, Canada approved the pipeline expansion in 2019. The pipeline runs between Alberta and BC, transporting about 300,000 barrels of oil per day, but the expansion would allow 890,000 barrels per day. According to Mmiwg, confrontations with the RCMP's Community Industry Response Group remain ongoing on the pipeline route. Judy Wilson of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs said since Canada owns the Trans Mountain project, they must stop the pipeline.
And since Canada owns the Trans Mountain pipeline, these human rights obligations apply to those states. And Canada must stop the construction because they're further violating those human rights obligations.
We contacted the Canadian government, but did not hear back before airtime. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
The public health threat of hepatitis is particularly high for Indigenous people. A group of organizations rallied in Ottawa to sound that alarm. Fraser Needham has more on that.
The World Health Organization wants to eliminate viral hepatitis as a public health threat by 2030. It's a lofty goal, but groups such as the Canadian Association for the Study of Liver Disease believe it is achievable. Calgary doctor Mark Swain says part of the problem is inequities in access to testing.
Many members of the priority population, so the Indigenous communities, people who use drugs or have used drugs in the past, and a number of the other groups that Jennifer mentioned, they don't or they can't access care. And so because they can't and they don't, they are not tested. And because they're not tested, they don't start the pathway towards care.
It is estimated 3/4 of those living with hepatitis C were born between 1945 and 1975, and as much as 50% of this number remains undiagnosed. According to a 2019 Canadian Network on Hepatitis C study, rates are 5 times higher among Indigenous peoples than the general population.
need to identify the people.
Swain says governments need to move more quickly on available rapid testing technology.
We're all very familiar with COVID, and we're all very familiar with going to get testing. And we used to have to go get the swabs, and then do the PCR test, and we did wait 48 hours. Now everyone has the antigen test. You just do you just do the swab at home, and then you test it, and you know very quickly if you have COVID. And so there's tests like that available for hepatitis C, but they're not approved in Canada.
Mercedes Russell started using drugs at 17 and eventually contracted hepatitis C. She's now 4 years sober and Hep C free thanks to advanced viral drug therapy. Russell says she understands why people don't want to get tested.
And then the people that are still using, they feel like they have to quit drugs completely in order to get rid of the disease. So that's another barrier that stops some of the drug people that I used with, or was one of the issues that I had too. Previously, I didn't want to quit when I was in full active addiction. I didn't want to quit.
She says she hopes by telling her story, she will encourage more people to overcome the stigma, get tested, and save lives.
You don't want to go get tested because you know the person that's going to test you, or the stigma behind that. That's why I think I stand up now. In the beginning I was hesitant to, but I think the more and more that I've accepted that I had Hep C, I think I can be an advocate, especially for my people, because a lot of my friends are still using, a lot of them are dead.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Many honored Red Dress Day last week, including a pair of Winnipeg sisters who wanted to show their support, but they say they were disappointed their schools wouldn't honor the day. Daryl Stranger has their story.
Peggy Lee and Margarita Brinton both wore red to their schools for Red Dress Day on May 5th. They wanted to honor those women that had been lost while also spread awareness, but say their schools did not recognize the day. Peggy Lee is a grade 10 student at College Sturgeon Heights Collegiate.
Nothing was spoken, nothing was shown, nothing was said. And it was like our voices were being silenced again and ignored. And I was very heartbroken to know that something that's so serious, something that's life or death for our people, was simply being ignored and pushed aside like it was nothing.
Despite the school sending a message to remind students and staff of the day, nothing was done. Margarita is a grade 8 student at École Ness.
I was upset when I noticed that none of the staff nor the students were wearing any sort of red in honor of our sisters. It was not mentioned in school. There was no announcement of it. But my teacher, taking our attendance, put Cinco de Mayo on the board because it was the Day of the Dead, but didn't put Mmiwg on the board.
Peggy Lee says she felt hopeless by the lack of acknowledgement.
It makes you feel hopeless because this is really a matter of life or death. Like, we actually die and go missing all of the time. I could be next. My sister could be next. My mother could be next. It doesn't matter to them because it's not their sisters or mothers that are going missing. It's not their life at risk. But to us, our lives are literally at risk.
The girl's father says he was disheartened when they told him what happened.
It's very disheartening that that's what we got for a school board, because it's their responsibility. We don't expect the students, every student, to know about this. We send our kids to school to learn and to understand what's going on around them. It's our school boards and our teachers that should be teaching this. And it's never going to stop or slow down or anything unless people are aware and are outraged about it.
We reached out to St. James's Assiniboia School Division, which governs both schools, and they sent the following email when asked about the situation, saying, in part, our school division is on its own reconciliation journey, educating our students, families, staff, and community. While some of our schools chose to honor murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls on May 5th, our other schools will plan to do it on the provincial date of October 4th. The sisters hope more education around Mmiwg is needed and the schools need to get on board. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, it's time for a quick break, but still ahead, a meeting of the mining minds in Iqaluit.
It is very important. I think it benefits to our communities, it benefits to our region. So it's important that we have mining in our territory.
As we told you last week, a settlement was reached in the case involving a grandfather and his granddaughter who were racially profiled at a Bank of Montreal in Vancouver, then handcuffed by Vancouver police after simply trying to open a bank account with an Indian status card as identification. Well, tonight, APTN Stina House sits down with the grandfather about settling that matter.
I am feeling really good about it. It's bringing closure to not only myself, but for my granddaughter and my son, and also to our community.
It all began in December of 2019 when Maxwell Johnson Sr. and his 12-year-old granddaughter Tori went to this Bank of Montreal to open a bank account for Tori. When they presented their status cards for ID, a bank employee called police. Johnson and his granddaughter were taken outside of the bank and put into handcuffs while being questioned. They were let go shortly after, but the experience traumatized Maxwell, who already suffered from anxiety, and now his granddaughter has also been diagnosed with anxiety as well. After filing human rights complaints against the VPD and BMO, Maxwell and Tori have now settled with an undisclosed amount of money. But for Max, it was never about the money.
I did this because it needed to be done. I didn't do it for the money. Money doesn't mean nothing to me. You know, it's family that means more to me, family and community. If you don't have that, you have nothing.
and their community stepped up to show their support just hours after Max accepted the settlement and closed his bank account at the Bank of Montreal.
I'm so proud of you. You've done a good stance.
One thing I'd like everybody to do, if you are being discriminated, stand up, get some help, It's a long process, but it's going to be worth it in the end.
Max has also designed this painting to be displayed in the Bank of Montreal. His community of Bella Bella have also invited the police officers involved and members of the Bank of Montreal to their community for a healing ceremony in the near future. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
It has been 2 years since Iqaluit has been able to host the Nunavut Mining Symposium. That's when all of the players in Nunavut's ever-growing mining sector get together for face-to-face chats. Kent Driscoll explains that this year, a looming decision on the future of one mine hangs heavy in the air. This is from Iqaluit.
This event, the Nunavut Mining Symposium, happens every year. Well, it did until a 2-year hiatus for COVID-19. Now, for the first time in 2 years, all the players in Nunavut's ever-growing mining sector are in place. Workshops and lectures like this are a part of it. A bigger part is the networking that goes on between every level of government and every level of the mining sector. The Kikitani Inuit Association represent Inuit on Baffin Island, putting them right in the middle of the discussion about Nunavut's mineral future. Their president knows mining can be a game changer for the territory.
It is very important. I think it benefits to our communities, it benefits to our region. So it's important that we have mining in our territory.
Almost no one disputes that mining is important to Nunavut's future. The disputes come when decisions have to be made about what to mine, how much to mine, and where to mine it. The Nunavut Impact Review Board, known in these circles as NERB, is set to announce their recommendation on a proposed doubling in scope of the iron ore mine that's in between Arctic Bay and Pond Inlet. Now that's the mine that was temporarily stopped by protesters last year by taking over the runway and the mining road. This decision has been a long time coming.
As you know, that it took 4 years for NERB to come up with how we're, a lot of interveners that were worried about the environment, the animals, the migration, and, all these other things that are happening. I think it's important that the mining companies start working with people within the community and also within the organization under the land claims agreement.
It's hard to get anyone in this room to talk about Friday's decision about the iron ore mine expansion. You get a lot of, well, I need to talk to my boss when you ask that sort of question. Akasuk, he's the president of QIA. He is the boss. So we asked him about that ticking clock on the NERB decision.
We want to make sure that we have a proper environment to monitoring. Wildlife monitoring. We want to ensure that the environment is protected well. Those are the things that we're worried about.
And that's the balancing act everyone in this room has to learn how to live with. Nunavut want the jobs that mining can bring. They also want the wildlife and environment to be protected. Friday's decision about the Mary River mine will be important, but Nunavut's economic future depends in part on that consensus being reached. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Time for another break, but when we come back, an Attawapiskat singer-songwriter sees himself at one of the busiest intersections in Toronto.
Pretty cool to be up here and to see your face kind of show up on this giant billboard. Pretty amazing.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Spring brings new life, and Gail Finch was able to take this photo showing 2 of 3 eggs recently hatched in her daughter's backyard. Keep these photos coming by emailing them to share@aptn.ca. We want to see your photos featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we got 20 in showers for St. John's, 20 in sunshine for Charlottetown. Inukjuak, 0 and sunny skies. Kuujjuaq, rain and 5. Sunny for Quebec, 14 in Saint-Ile, 25 in Quebec City. Sun continues into Ontario, 30 degrees for Ottawa, 29 for North Bay. 21 in Kapuskasing with a chance of showers, 20 and sunny for Big Trout Lake. 14 in sunshine for Puckatawagan, 6 and sunny in Churchill. Winnipeg, showers and 15 degrees, same with Brandon. 16 in showers for Yorkton, 11 in showers for Swift Current. 18 in rain for Buffalo Narrows, 14 in sunshine for Stony Rapids. Fort Chip, showers and 11 degrees, showers for Grand Prairie and 16. 17 in rain for Edmonton and Medicine Hat. 17 in showers for U2 in Kamloops. Sunshine though for Quesnel, 15 degrees. Showers in Prince Rupert and 10, 14 in sunny for Prince George. 9 in sunshine for Beaver Creek, 11 in showers for Whitehorse. 14 for Wrigley and Norman Wells, sunny skies there. 7 and clear skies for Mmiwg, 5 in Polytech, sunny there. Mix of sun and cloud, and 2 for Baker Lake, New Yacht, -3 in sunshine. Joe Haven, -6 with a chance of flurries, sunshine, and Kenite, and -1. Five APTN journalists are up for national awards. The Canadian Association of Journalists announced the finalists earlier this month. Brittany Guillot and Kathleen Martins are nominated for their work on day schools in the Access to Information category. Angel Moore and Tom Fenario are finalists for their breaking news coverage of the Listegouche fishery. Shushan Bacon, an Innu journalist with our French news program, is up for the Journalism for Human Rights and Emerging Indigenous Journalist Award. Good luck to all of you. The CAJ winners will be announced in Montreal on May 28th. Well, a singer-songwriter from a remote Cree community in Northern Ontario is being recognized for his talent as a solo artist. Adrian Sutherland has been nominated for a Juno Award, and he's literally flashing his face in Toronto. Here's Annette Francis to explain.
If you happened to be on the corner of Yonge and Dundas over the weekend, you might have caught a glimpse of Adrian Sutherland. No, he wasn't walking around in the crowd. You had to look up, way up.
Pretty cool to be up here and to see your face kind of show up on this giant billboard. Pretty amazing.
For the first time in his 11-year career, Sutherland has been nominated for a Juno Award for When the Magic Hits. He's one of 5 nominees in the Contemporary Indigenous Artist category of the year.
For me, it's been a long time coming. You know, I've been wanting to work on a solo project for a long time. I started off as a solo artist before we created the band Midnight Shine, which is the band I played in for several years.
When the pandemic hit, Sutherland had to find another way to continue his music from his home in Attawapiskat. He said being isolated for 2 years was difficult, but he quickly got busy and built a recording studio in a shipping container.
So there's some logistical challenges to be able to kind of do a little bit of everything, and then of course when you set up the studio, you know, there's a whole other learning curve involved with that and how to use the hardware and software and make it all work.
And the singer-songwriter did make it work. When the Magic Hits is the result.
I draw from mostly my life experiences up north, so a lot of the music you kind of hear that come out. But I also, you know, draw from universal themes, you know, everyday life stuff that everybody, you know, faces, like love, family, you know, trauma, loss. Those are the kinds of things I've drawn from. Of course, my culture as well, and the belief system and the Cree views.
The Junos will be held on Sunday at the Budweiser stage at Ontario Place in Toronto. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
Well, 2 peoples deemed extinct in Canada have been shown to be, well, not. The Sinisk, whose territory runs from northeastern Washington state up through southeastern BC, are planning to return to the area next month to celebrate a Supreme Court win that shows they are in fact still here. Meanwhile, new research shows the Beothuk in Newfoundland, people who've been extinct since the 1820s, have DNA alive and well in modern day people. Here's some highlights from today's In Focus on that.
The one fellow that we found, that was a general indication that Beothuk DNA has survived so ancient DNA has survived into the modern peoples. And always the problem is, well, you only know about the people that you look at. And so then the question arose, can we establish what is generally true, that Beothuk DNA has survived, whether you regard the Beothuk as extinct or not?
Can you tell us, what did it feel like to know that, there's a government, there's a country that says that you don't exist?
Well, we fight uphill battles all the time. I mean, that's just, you get those put in front of you and you do what you need to do. You hire the best attorneys and you move forward against them. And now it's education.
Yeah.
We need to educate the people on who we are and what it was, the history of that before they were there and said that we were extinct. We were one of the largest land-based people that managed that territory. And so education's the key. It's the key in everything. With all the youth today, they're the ones we're passing the torch on to. When I'm done here, I'll be passing the torch to somebody else. So if we don't educate those youth good enough to take the torch to get rid of the prejudice and everything else, then we're fighting a losing battle already.
First time in my 25 years as a journalist, I interviewed somebody who had previously been deemed extinct. For that full episode of In Focus, you can listen to it as a podcast at aptnnews.ca/podcast. That's a wrap for your midweek news. We're always thankful that you can join us. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.